What's up, good people? Artwork Geo. Just want to tap in with you real quick. We all losing out here, y'all. With this food, gig economy, food delivery service, ride share, whatever. It's falling apart, and part of it is because of the cost of living. Everything costs more, and I don't think something like this can do well in a market where things are in a society when things are starting to cost more money because you start to have something like what we consider a convenience then becomes a luxury, and people are willing to inconvenience themselves for the sake of saving some money. When you start having to realize that, there becomes less of an opportunity in those markets and those different things to make money because as a driver you need people to order food, right? So if nobody's ordering food, then you don't get deliveries. And that's why you hear people saying they've been on these platforms for hours on end and they only get one or two deliveries, or making 40 bucks in 8 hours. When a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 hours, you was probably making twice as what you would make at a job. And part of this is because people were tipping more. The reason they tip less now, if you think about it, nobody wants to pay $5 more for a Chipotle burrito than they would have at the restaurant, and then still have to tip and then pay all these little miscellaneous fees. I mean, at the end of the day, you end up spending 20 bucks on a burrito that would have been like $12 at the restaurant. So that's clearly more of a luxury. And then what's crazy is people were more willing to do that because they get the convenience. It costs more, right? But then with society costing more money, the tariffs, whatever's going on, people are holding back. People are like, nah, I'd rather just go, or I'll just make it myself. You get what I'm saying? So now the restaurants are losing because now people cooking at home. And then the gig economy is starting to suffer because people not placing any orders. So, as the customer, man, like, who wants to spend that much more on something? And then the restaurant shorthand you because they know it's a delivery. I truly feel like a lot of restaurants are regretting like having business with these companies because what they've done now is instead of having a culture where people are used to coming into the restaurants, they've created this thing where people feel comfortable and it's the norm to order, through the apps or whatever. So now they take a hit because they have to pay out, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and whomever, these services are through. They have to give them a cut. It's not free to be on these platforms. As a business, it's not free to be available on DoorDash. You got to pay for that. It's a whole setup. They got equipment they give you. You got to have a certain rating. It's a lot you got to go through to be considered a restaurant because that's giving you a platform. You know what I'm saying? That's like as a creator being on Etsy, you know what I'm saying? Being on their platform and them taking a cut, or being on Amazon, being able to be seen by all these people, but it comes at a cost. You know what I'm saying? It costs to be on their platform. So it's the same deal. You know what I mean? These people are paying to have their restaurants featured on these apps so they can make money. But when there's this fee that they got to pay, they take a hit. So they got to figure out where they can make up for that. And so where do you think they make, you know what I'm saying? Who do you think suffers? Who do you think has to pay for that? The drivers and the customers, you know what I'm saying? By lowering the quality of the food. You know what I'm saying? Who's to say that for uh a lot of these mobile orders, they're like, man, use them ingredients over there. Like the people who come into the restaurant get the good stuff. Like, you never know, man. These smaller restaurants, they might have some of these cheaper options, you know what I'm saying, available for the orders that are delivery orders. Because mind you, these people have to give out more money for these orders to be fulfilled. And then it's an increase in these orders though. Ever since COVID, ever since that, it's been an increase in people doing it that way because they don't want to be out and about, or it's just become the norm because of that at one point being, you know what I'm saying, a necessity to have to order the food rather than go out for all these different, health reasons or whatever. But now it's become the norm. It's become part of the culture for people to do that. And then I think at the same time, it's also becoming something that people see as a luxury. And now they're just being done with it as a whole. So that's when the drivers suffer because they don't get to make any money. So it's really like a lose, lose, lose situation. All three parties lose, y'all. And I really don't know where the fix is, but for anybody who actually does food delivery, like let me know in the comments if you've seen your income drop. You know, if you've seen how the tips have gotten smaller and, you know, the amount of requests coming through. You know, a lot of this stuff, like I look and see some of these requests, like I get off work, you know, 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. So when I'm off, you know, it's dinner time for a lot of people. It's starting to become dinner time. So you would expect it to be a good time, you know, for people to place orders or whatever. But to be honest, it's really not like that. You know, I remember the lunch hour used to be a good time to do it. Now, some days, if for some reason I'm off or I call in or whatever the case is, if I'm off early and I do like lunch hour, it's quiet, literally crickets. It's nothing coming through, you know, and I had to just sit and think, like, why is it not what it used to be? And when you think about it, I mean, it's clear. It's a revolving, not a revolving door, but it's like a synergetic effect where, okay, this affects this, affects this. So what do we do about that? Y'all let me know, man. You know, as a customer, do you feel those extra costs? Like, are you starting to be like, nah, I'd rather, you know, get in here and cook my food. Like, I'd rather go in and give me some ingredients and make my own Chipotle burrito. You know, it's crazy, man. You know, and then they here in California, they came out with a prop where they pay you some kind of minimum wage deal if you don't hit a certain amount of money. If you, but that's not for everywhere. You know, some places that don't have that, they're still not protected by anything. So these people are out here hoping they make some money. If they don't, they don't. Meanwhile, you know what I'm saying, the app, they're really not lifting a finger, but they want their cut. You know what I mean? And then I heard a lot of these places, these companies, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of them, man, they spend more money on advertising and trying to promote the business because they got money to play with. If you think about it, what else are they paying for? They're not paying for your car. You using your own car. What, the shirt they give you if you do Grubhub or whatever that is, DoorDash, the bag. Like, what are they really paying you? Like, I mean, what are they really providing other than access to their app? It's just like a classic middleman hustle, man. Like, whoever creates something like that, like, you coming up. But are you really? Because, like I said, at some point, it's gonna fall apart with this type of trend. You know what I'm saying? With this moving the way it's moving, it's not gonna last that long. So y'all let me know what y'all think, man. I just had to, you know, share that with y'all. So until then, I'll holler at y'all, man. It's work.